I have been married to my childhood sweetheart for 3 years, recognized as a model couple in our social circle. Upon returning home early, I caught my husband and best friend entangled passionately on our marital bed. In my previous life, after my hysterical breakdown and crying, my husband described me as repulsive. This time, I calmly closed the door and stepped back out. Then, I took out my phone, opened a live stream with tens of millions of followers, and aimed the camera at the tightly closed bedroom door. Family, today I'm performing a show for everyone called Catching Adultery Live. On the phone screen, the comments exploded instantly. The host isn't appraising treasures today, but catching adultery instead? Damn, what a novel live content. I love it. Don't shake the camera. Aim properly. Is there any sound from inside the door? Why can't I hear it? I directed the phone's microphone toward the door crack. The ambiguous panting and indecent flirtatious sounds were clearly transmitted across the entire internet via the stream. The number of viewers in the live stream surged from 10 million to 15 million, 20 million. The figures continued to jump wildly. I heard it. That's my idol Adrian's voice. Who is that woman? Isn't Adrian famously devoted to his wife? His wife Celia is the top socialite in a city. So much information, I'm forwarding this right away. Brothers, come watch the gods fight. Watching the rapidly scrolling comments, the corner of my lips curled into a cold arc. In my previous life, I burst through the door like a madwoman, hysterically confronting the adulterous pair on the bed. In return, I received Adrian's disgusted slap and Sabrina's tearful accusations while hiding in his arms. They conspired to send me to a mental institution, seized everything from my Shin family, and ultimately left me to die of illness in that cold prison. Reborn in this life, I will not make the same foolish mistakes. I want to ruin their reputations and leave them with nothing. I adjusted the camera angle to ensure capturing the most dramatic scene, then abruptly pushed open the door. With a loud bang, everything inside was clearly exposed to over 20 million viewers. On the marital bed, two naked bodies were intertwined. The man was my husband of 3 years, Adrian. The woman was my best friend of 10 years, Sabrina. Hearing the noise, they turned back in panic. Upon realizing it was me, a flash of panic crossed Adrian's face, but he quickly composed himself, even showing a hint of impatience. Celia, what madness are you up to now? He leisurely pulled over the blanket to cover himself and Sabrina, his tone full of reproach, as if I were the unreasonable intruder. Sabrina shrank into his arms on the verge of tears, her exposed shoulders covered in ambiguous red marks. Celia, don't misunderstand, Adrian and we just had too much to drink. The opening lines were identical to those in my previous life. I said nothing, merely slowly aiming the phone camera at their faces. Adrian finally noticed the phone in my hand and the skyrocketing number of live viewers on the screen. His face instantly turned from pale to ashen, then to dark. Celia! What are you doing? Turn it off. Turn it off now. He roared, throwing off the blanket and rushing to snatch my phone. I stepped back lightly, dodging him. The camera perfectly captured his naked, disheveled appearance and Sabrina's terrified scream. The comments went completely wild. Ah! My eyes. Adrian really cheated. That woman is Sabrina. Oh my God, beware of fire, theft, and best friends. Celia, run. This guy's going to hit someone. Record it. Record everything. This is evidence. Adrian lunged but missed, glaring at me in rage and shame, his eyes filled with malice that almost devoured me. Are you insane? Do you know the consequences of this? Of course I know. I looked at him calmly and said word by word, the consequence is that you, Adrian, the most promising young entrepreneur, will be ruined for cheating on your wife with her best friend. And she, Sabrina, the talented designer, will be reviled by all for being the third party. Sabrina's face was as pale as paper, she clutched the blanket, her body trembling non-stop. Celia, you can't do this to me. We're best friends. Best friends? I laughed, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. Would best friends climb into my husband's bed and sleep in our marital home? In the live stream, netizens were filled with righteous indignation. Scum man and cheap woman. Lock them up. Poor Celia, hug the beauty. Host, don't be afraid, we're all here. Already called the police. Seeing the word police, Adrian's pupils contracted sharply. He couldn't afford a criminal record, and the Gu family couldn't lose face like this. He softened his tone, trying to stabilize me. Celia, we've been husband and wife, don't make it so ugly. Turn off the live stream first, let's talk properly. Whatever compensation you want, I'll give it to you. Compensation? I laughed as if hearing the biggest joke. Adrian, do you think I lack money? What I lack is the life you two forced me to death in my previous life. What I want, you can't afford. As soon as the words fell, urgent knocking came from outside the door. Police. People inside, listen up, we've received a report suspecting illegal live streaming here. Open the door immediately for inspection. Adrian and Sabrina's faces turned completely ashen. The arrival of the police was like the climax of a farce. The flashing police lights cast flickering shadows on Adrian and Sabrina's pale faces. They scrambled to find clothes to wear, their disheveled appearance eliciting waves of whistles and mockery in the live stream. I timely closed the live stream, and in the second before the screen went completely black, I said, "Thank you all for watching, today's show ends here. Follow-ups will be posted on my personal account." My personal account? Of course, I didn't have one. But I knew that after tonight, there would be an account named Celia across the entire internet with tens of millions of followers. And that account would become the sword of Damocles hanging over Adrian and Sabrina's heads. After the police entered, they routinely inquired about the situation. I concisely explained the matter and submitted the live stream recording as evidence to the police. Adrian tried to explain, saying it was just a misunderstanding between husband and wife. But faced with the misunderstanding of over 20 million viewers, his explanation seemed pale and powerless. Ultimately, they were taken back to the police station for disseminating obscene information on a public network platform. I followed behind to give a statement. Before leaving, Adrian turned back, looking at me with a venomous gaze. "Celia, you'll regret this." I returned a smile. Regret? My biggest regret was not seeing your true faces earlier in my previous life. Leaving the police station, the sky was already dimly lit. I hailed a cab and gave the address of a hotel. I didn't go home, I didn't want to stay a second longer in that house filled with betrayal and filth. Just arriving at the hotel, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Adrian's mother, Lydia. As soon as the call connected, she launched into a tirade. "Celia. You venomous woman. Our Gu family must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to marry a troublemaker like you. If anything happens to Adrian, I'll skin you alive." Skin me alive? I chuckled lightly, my tone lazy. "Ms. Lydia, we live in a society governed by law, threats carry legal consequences." Lydia on the other end choked for a moment, then screamed at a higher decibel. "You dare mention the law to me? You've completely disgraced our Gu family. I order you to issue a statement immediately, saying you were mentally unstable and maliciously slandering. Otherwise, I'll make sure you can't stay in a city." "Oh?" I drawled, "I'm so scared." However, whether I'm mentally unstable isn't for you to decide, it requires evaluation by professional institutions. As for malicious slander, I have a 1-hour high-definition and censored recording in my hands. Would you like to appreciate it? Your son Adrian, on the bed. Shut up. Lydia interrupted me furiously, her breathing heavy like a broken bellows. I knew that what she cared about most was the Gu family's reputation. I intended to personally tear down and trample upon that very reputation she valued. "Celia, what exactly do you want?" Lydia's voice carried a hint of undetectable fatigue and compromise. "It's simple." I leaned back on the hotel's soft sofa, looking at the morning light outside the window. "Divorce. And I want Adrian to leave with nothing." "You're dreaming." Lydia screamed. You won't get a penny of the Gu family's assets. Is that so? I said leisurely. Then we'll see in court. At that time, that video will likely be presented as evidence and played publicly in court. Oh right, I'll also invite the best media friends in a city to attend. I've even thought of the headline, Elite Family Secrets, Gu Corporation President's Courtroom Romance with Socialite's Best Friend. On the other end of the phone was a long silence. I could imagine how twisted and ferocious Lydia's well-maintained face must be at that moment. After a long while, she squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. Where are you? Figured it out? I chuckled lightly. If you figured it out, have your lawyer contact me. Oh no, contact my lawyer. Hanging up the phone, I tossed it aside. I knew this battle had just begun. Lydia wouldn't give up easily. Adrian and Sabrina wouldn't sit idly by either. Sure enough, within half an hour, the online sentiment began to shift. An article titled An Ordinary Girl's Tearful Accusation, 10 Years of Friendship, Ultimately Misplaced rapidly spread across major platforms. The author was Sabrina. In the article, she portrayed herself as a humble, pitiful person in love. She said she and Adrian were truly in love but had to painfully separate due to my obstruction as the vicious legitimate wife. She claimed I was arrogant and domineering in daily life, abusing Adrian and treating him as property. She said I had long noticed their feelings but endured silently until today, setting this vicious trap to destroy them. I love him, I'm willing to bear all the infamy for him. But Celia, you won, you destroyed us. But you will never get his heart. At the end of the article, she attached a selfie with red-rimmed eyes, looking pitiably delicate. I had to admit, Sabrina was skilled at manipulating emotions. This article, which glossed over the important parts and inverted right and wrong, successfully garnered sympathy from some people. Public opinion began to polarize. So that's how it is, I knew Adrian wouldn't cheat, turns out the original wife has issues. 10 years best friend, stealing someone's husband, and still daring to claim true love? Being the mistress so righteously. Celia is too vicious, using such a method for revenge. Upstairs saints, get lost. Support the original wife. Tear apart the scum man and cheap woman. My phone vibrated crazily again with calls and messages from countless unknown numbers. Opening them, they were all curses and insults. Bitch. Why don't you die? Let Adrian and Sabrina go. You venomous woman. It seemed the Gu family's PR team had entered the fray. They bought trolls, leaked my phone number, trying to force me to submit with public opinion. Unfortunately, they miscalculated. Looking at those vile words, my expression showed no ripple. I opened my computer and logged into an encrypted email. Inside lay an email I had prepared long ago. The recipient was Jason, the most famous and least ethical paparazzo in a city. The email content was simple, just an audio file and one sentence. Your headline, no thanks needed. Click, send. After doing all this, I shut down the computer, drew the curtains, and slept peacefully. Only with full energy could I watch a good show. I slept deeply through this nap. When I woke up again, the lights were already on outside the window. Opening my phone, there were dozens of missed calls and hundreds of unread messages from Lydia, Adrian, and my parents. I first called my parents back, reported that I was safe, and told them not to worry. Regarding my decision to divorce, they were shocked but mostly heartbroken and supportive. Celia, don't be afraid, Mom and Dad will always be your backing. After hanging up, I opened Instagram. 8 of the top 10 trending searches were related to us: Adrian, Sabrina recording, Sabrina persona collapse, scheming bitch Sabrina, Celia counterattack. Each entry was followed by a deep red exploding tag. Clicking the first one, it was the audio released by Jason. In the audio was a conversation between Sabrina and another friend of hers. Sabrina, are you really going to do this? That's Celia, she's been so good to you. Good? Sabrina scoffed, her voice full of jealousy and disdain. She's just lucky to be born in the Shin family. What right does she have to everything? Adrian, and the Gu family's assets, should all be mine. But. No buts. That fool Adrian is already infatuated with me. Once I get the shares of Gu Corporation and get pregnant with his child, Celia can only scram. What about Lydia? That old hag? She can't wait for me to enter the door. She's long disliked Celia, thinking her family background is too good, overshadowing the Gu family. The audio was not long, but packed with information. It was like a sharp knife, tearing to shreds Sabrina's carefully crafted mask of humble for love. Incidentally, it also dragged Lydia down with her. The comment section had completely fallen. Damn. Shocking reversal. Turns out Sabrina is the scheming bitch. Ugh. So disgusting. Enjoying a friend's care on one hand, plotting to steal her husband and family assets on the other. The mother-in-law is really top-notch, actually helping the mistress against the daughter-in-law? Celia did beautifully. Against such people, you can't be soft-hearted. Under Sabrina's whitewashing article, there was overwhelming abuse. Those who had sympathized with her before turned coats, cursing more fiercely than anyone. My phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. I answered. Miss Celia, this is Ethan. The voice on the other end was deep, pleasant, carrying a convincing steadiness. Ethan, the most renowned divorce lawyer in a city, with 10 years of practice and an undefeated record. In my previous life, I wanted to hire him, but Lydia beat me to it. She bought him off with a sky-high contract, making him Adrian's representing lawyer. In the end, I was utterly defeated. This life, I won't give her that chance again. Hello, Lawyer Ethan. I think you already know my purpose. Of course. Ethan chuckled lightly. The Gu family's call came just half an hour ago. But I refused. Why? I was somewhat surprised. With Lydia's methods, the price she offered must have been irresistible to Ethan. Because Ethan paused, his voice carrying a hint of amusement, I'm more interested in your livestream. Miss Celia, you're a very interesting person. I raised an eyebrow. Lawyer Ethan, you flatter me. So, can we discuss my case? Of course. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., my law firm, do you have time? Yes. Hanging up the phone, I looked at the night view outside the window, feeling an unprecedented calm. Ethan was the most important piece in my revenge chess game. With him, my chances of winning increased by 90%. The next day, I appeared at Ethan's law firm on time. He was younger than I imagined, dressed in a well-tailored black suit, with deep and sharp eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses, as if he could see through people's hearts. Miss Celia, please sit. He personally poured me a glass of water, then sat opposite me. I've understood your demands, divorce, and have Adrian leave with nothing. Yes. I nodded. Most of the marital assets are investments from my Shin family, as well as conversions from my personal premarital property. Adrian's company startup funds were also provided by my father. I have evidence for all this. In my previous life, these evidences were destroyed by Lydia using despicable means. But in this life, I had long transferred them to the safest place. Ethan nodded, his slender fingers lightly tapping on the desktop. The evidence is sufficient. However, the Gu family has deep roots in a city, they will certainly try every means to delay and pressure. I understand. So, we need to add more fuel to the fire for them. Ethan pushed his glasses, a glint flashing in his eyes behind the lenses. A fire that can burn them to ashes completely. The fire Ethan referred to was a document, detailed evidence of Adrian's company engaging in tax evasion, falsifying accounts, and illegal bidding in recent years. These, how did you get them? I looked at him in shock. In my previous life, I investigated for a long time and only found superficial details. Yet Ethan obtained such a complete chain of evidence in such a short time. Trade secret. He winked at me, his smile carrying a bit of cunning. You just need to know that with this, Adrian not only has to leave with nothing but will also spend several years behind bars. Looking at him, a warm current suddenly surged in my heart. Lawyer Ethan, thank you. No need to thank me. He pushed the document toward me. This is my job. Moreover. He paused, looking into my eyes seriously. I also hate people who destroy others' families. His gaze was sincere, leaving me momentarily dazed. We reached an agreement. I handed all the evidence I had to Ethan. He promised to resolve everything for me in the shortest time. Leaving the law firm, the sunlight was just right. I squinted my eyes and took a deep breath. The air seemed to carry the taste of freedom. Next was waiting to see how the Gu family would struggle in their death throes. That afternoon, Gu Corporation's stock price began a cliff-like decline. Overnight, nearly $10 billion in market value evaporated. Online, the scandals about Adrian and Sabrina continued to ferment. The Gu family's PR team was overwhelmed but powerless to reverse the tide. Lydia called me again, her voice no longer arrogant, only endless fatigue and resentment. Celia, what will it take for you to stop? Do you have to destroy Adrian and the Gu family? It was your son who personally destroyed himself and the Gu family, I responded coldly. Please, I beg you, let him go. As long as you withdraw the lawsuit and issue a statement, I can give you 100 million. No, 500 million. 500 million? She was really willing. Unfortunately, what I, Celia, lack the least is money. Ms. Lydia, I'll say it again, I only want divorce, with him leaving with nothing. You. Oh right, I interrupted her, I forgot to tell you, I've already reported Gu Corporation's illegal activities to the Tax Bureau and Securities Regulatory Commission under my real name. I think they'll soon invite Adrian for a chat. On the other end came a sharp scream and the sound of a heavy object falling. I knew Lydia had fainted from anger. Serves her right. All this was the retribution they deserved. The developments were smoother than I expected. The joint investigation team from the Tax Bureau and Securities Commission quickly entered Gu Corporation. In the face of Ethan's ironclad evidence, Adrian had no defense. Tax evasion, financial fraud, illegal embezzlement of public funds, each charge was enough to doom him forever. Gu Corporation was sealed, all assets frozen. Adrian, as the legal representative, was criminally detained. The most promising young entrepreneur in a city became a prisoner overnight. This news exploded like a heavy bomb in a city again. Yet I, as the central figure in this storm, remained unusually calm. I moved back to the Shin family home. My parents didn't ask much, just silently prepared everything for me. Father patted my shoulder and said, Celia, well done. A daughter of the Shin family cannot be bullied. Mother, with red eyes, hugged me and said, it's good to have you back, good to have you back. The warmth of home finally relaxed my nerves that had been tense for many days. A few days later, I received a call from Sabrina. Her voice was hoarse and desperate. Celia, you won, are you satisfied? I didn't win, I said faintly, I just took back what rightfully belongs to me. You destroyed him. You destroyed me too. She screamed hysterically. I was fired from the company, everyone calls me a cheap woman. I don't even dare to go out now. This is all your fault. It was you who chose this path yourself. I won't let you go. Even as a ghost, I won't let you go. The phone was hung up. Listening to the beeping busy tone, I felt nothing. For Sabrina, even hate felt superfluous. She was just an insignificant clown on my path of revenge. The real big fish was still behind. My divorce lawsuit with Adrian went to trial. Involving public figures and commercial crimes, this trial attracted much attention. I sat in the plaintiff's seat, expression calm. On the opposite defendant's seat, Adrian wore prison clothes, handcuffed, looking haggard, no longer the spirited man of the past. His gaze fixed on me, filled with resentment and unwillingness. Lydia sat in the first row of the audience seats. In just a few days, she seemed to have aged a decade, her hair mostly white. The trial process held no suspense. Ethan's prepared evidence was impeccable. Marital infidelity, asset transfer, commercial crimes. Adrian's offenses were listed one by one. The lawyer he hired retreated step by step before Ethan, with no power to parry. Ultimately, the judge ruled on the spot, divorce between me and Adrian granted. Due to Adrian's major fault, I received 90% of the marital assets. The original shares of GU Corporation belonged to me. As for Adrian, he would face more than 10 years of imprisonment. The moment the gavel fell, Lydia let out a shrill scream and fainted on the spot. Adrian, as if all strength was drained, slumped in the chair. He looked at me, lips moving as if wanting to say something. But I gave him no chance. I stood up and, accompanied by Ethan, walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Outside, the sunlight was brilliant. Countless reporters swarmed, surrounding Ethan and me. "Miss Celia, are you satisfied with this verdict? Miss Celia, what are your plans next? Will you take over GU Corporation? Lawyer Ethan, what do you have to say about this complete victory?" The flashing lights made my face appear somewhat pale. I stopped, looked at the camera, and showed a composed smile. Justice may be delayed, but it will never be absent. My words made the front-page headlines of major financial news the next day. Celia, the new queen of a city's business world, GU's curtain falls, shins rise. Everyone thought I would spend a long time cleaning up that mess. But they were all wrong. With Ethan's help, I decisively carried out sweeping reforms to the company. I purged all the old GU family subordinates and replaced them with my own trusted people. I divested bad assets, reorganized business lines, and quickly injected new vitality into the company using the Shin family's connections and resources. In just a month, the company's stock price miraculously stopped falling and rebounded, even higher than before the incident. With my strength, I proved to everyone that I, Celia, am not a daughter flower that can only cling to men. I can also be a queen who stands on her own. That day, I was processing documents in the office when the secretary knocked and entered. "Celia, there's a lady outside looking for you. She says her name is Sabrina." I looked up, somewhat surprised. I thought she would never have the face to appear before me again in this lifetime. "Let her in." A few minutes later, Sabrina walked in. She had lost a lot of weight, her face sallow, wearing a washed-out old coat, no longer the glamorous figure of the past. She looked at me with complex eyes, jealousy, unwillingness, and a hint of pleading. "Celia." She started, her voice dry. "We're not close enough for you to call me so intimately." I leaned back in the chair, looking at her faintly. Her face paled further, clutching her hem. "Celia, I'm here to beg you." "Beg me?" I laughed as if hearing a joke. "What qualification do you have to beg me?" I know I was wrong." She lowered her head, her voice carrying a sob. "I shouldn't have been deluded, shouldn't have betrayed you. Please, for the sake of our 10 years of friendship, give me a way to live. I can't find a job now, can't pay rent. If this continues, I'll really starve to death." She cried pitiably. In my previous life, I might have softened. But now, I only felt disgusted. "Sabrina," I stood up, walked in front of her, looking down at her. "Whether you starve to death, what does it have to do with me? When you plotted against me back then, why didn't you think of giving me a way to live? When you and Adrian were tumbling in my marital bed, why didn't you consider our 10 years of friendship?" Each of my words was like a knife, stabbing fiercely into her heart. Her face grew paler, her body swaying. Get out." I interrupted her coldly. "Don't let me see you again, otherwise, I can't guarantee what I'll do." My gaze was ice cold, like a poison knife. Sabrina was scared, stepping back, stumbling as she turned and fled out. Watching her fleeing back in panic, I felt no pleasure. Only pity. For an unworthy man, for those illusory desires, she ruined her own life and nearly ruined mine. Resolving this small interlude with Sabrina, my life completely got back on track. The company thrived under my hands. Ethan also transitioned from my representing lawyer to my friend. We occasionally dined and chatted together. He was very knowledgeable and interesting. Being with him, I felt an unprecedented relaxation and ease. That day, we met at a newly opened Western restaurant for dinner. He suddenly asked me, "Next, what are your plans?" Plans? I cut the steak, thought for a moment. Do well with the company, let my parents enjoy their retirement. What about yourself? He looked at me intently. Haven't thought about starting a new relationship? My hand paused. Relationship? After Adrian's betrayal, I had become somewhat wary of the word. Not for now, I smiled. Once bitten by a snake, 10 years afraid of the well rope. That snake has already been caged. Ethan's voice was soft, and not all well ropes bite. His gaze was fervent and sincere, making me somewhat afraid to look directly. I lowered my head and changed the topic. Speaking of which, I've always been curious why you helped me back then. The conditions from the Gu family should have been much better than mine. Ethan was silent for a moment. Because my mother also experienced something similar to you. His voice carried a hint of undetectable sadness. She was driven mad by my father and his mistress together, and finally, jumped off a building to suicide. I was stunned, not expecting him to have such a heavy past. I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's okay, it's all in the past. He smiled at me, but the smile was somewhat forced. From then on, I swore to become the best lawyer, to seek justice for all betrayed women. So, when I saw your live stream, I knew I had to help you. So that's how it is. Looking at him, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. We were both people hurt by betrayal. This might be why we fit so well. This meal ended in a somewhat heavy atmosphere. On the way back, Ethan suddenly spoke. Celia, he called my name, not Miss Celia, give me a chance, and give yourself a chance, okay? I looked at him, seeing my reflection in his deep eyes. My heart skipped a beat uncontrollably. I didn't answer Ethan immediately. I needed time to sort out my feelings. Back home, I received an unexpected call from the prison. Adrian wanted to see me. I hesitated but agreed. Some things ultimately need closure. In the visiting room, separated by a thick glass, I saw Adrian again. He was even more haggard than last time in court. Wearing blue and white prison uniform, his hair shaved to a crew cut, sunken eye sockets, turbid gaze. Seeing me, he became somewhat agitated, veins bulging on the hand gripping the phone. Celia, you venomous woman. His first words were still curses. I looked at him calmly, saying nothing. He cursed for a while, seeing no reaction from me, found it boring, and stopped. What exactly did you do to my mom? He asked, panting heavily. What could I do to her? I countered. I just returned what she did to our Shin family. After I took over the company, the first thing I did was thoroughly investigate the accounts of the Shin family's investment in Gu Corporation back then. Then I discovered that Lydia had used her position to secretly transfer large amounts of Shin family assets, lining her own pockets. I handed the evidence to the police. Now, she's in too. In the women's prison next to Adrian's. The mother and son are reunited in another sense. You. Adrian's eyes instantly reddened, he stood up abruptly, wanting to pounce, but was blocked by the glass. Celia. I'll kill you. He madly pounded the glass, making loud bangs. The guards immediately rushed over, subdued him, and dragged him out. From beginning to end, my expression showed no change. Watching his disheveled back being dragged away, I suddenly found it somewhat laughable. This was the man I loved for over a decade, even died for once. Now, he seemed nothing but a spoiled, irresponsible coward. Walking out of the prison, the sunlight was dazzling. I saw Ethan's car parked not far away. He leaned on the car door, saw me, and smiled. Finished talking? Yes. How's your mood? Better than ever. I looked at him and smiled too. Ethan, does what you said last time still count? He was stunned for a moment, then realized, the joy in his eyes almost overflowing. Of course. He quickly walked in front of me, holding my hand. His palm was warm and dry, full of strength. Celia, thank you. It should be me thanking you. We looked at each other and smiled. The sunlight overhead was warm and bright. I knew my life had finally turned a new page. All the darkness and pain had become the past. The future would be a smooth path. After being with Ethan, life was like sugar with honey, sweetly just right. He was an impeccable partner, gentle, considerate, respecting all my decisions. He would remember my menstrual cycle, preparing brown sugar water and heating pads in advance. When I was tired from work, he would silently massage my shoulders. He would accompany me to watch boring idle dramas, smiling and agreeing when I complained about the plot. Every day with him was filled with fragmented yet warm happiness. I then realized that love could be like this, not possession, not control, but equal support, a resonance of souls. My career also improved increasingly. Under my leadership, the Shin Group had firmly taken the top seat in a city's business world. I became an idol and role model in the hearts of countless women. Occasionally, I still heard some news about Adrian and Sabrina. I heard Adrian behaved poorly in prison, repeatedly violating rules, and his sentence was extended. Lydia, due to old age and poor health, fell ill in prison and passed away soon after. As for Sabrina, her fate was the most miserable. That day, I was looking at a financial report when Ethan suddenly pushed the door in, his face somewhat grave. Celia, take a look at this. He handed me his phone. On the screen was a social news item, a woman found under an overpass with no signs of life. In the news image, the woman curled up in a dirty corner, her face unrecognizable, vaguely resembled Sabrina's outline. The report said she died from drug overdose. After being driven out by me, she had nowhere to go, got addicted to drugs, and finally died on the streets. Looking at that photo, my heart had no ripple. Pitiful people must have hateful aspects. Her fate today was all caused by herself. I turned off the phone, looked up, and smiled at Ethan. It's all in the past. Yes, all in the past. He came over, hugged me from behind. From now on, you have me. I leaned in his warm embrace, feeling his steady heartbeat, my heart peaceful. Yes, it's all in the past. Those who hurt me have all paid the price. And I have found my own happiness. Reborn once, I did not fail the gift from heaven. I lived as the person I most wanted to be, proud, independent, shining brightly. Outside the window, the night was gentle. I turned my head and kissed Ethan's lips. The rest of our lives is long, we have plenty of time ahead.